if we're managing for an endangered species, that's only going to improve the habitat for other species as well.
Right, got it. So you might not necessarily really care about the speckled pocketbook
Right.
mussel, right? But you might care about the snow geese that come through or getting that 10-point buck in hunting season. And those things are interrelated, is what I'm hearing.
Welcome to Forest Matters, a podcast about sustainable forest management, forest carbon development, and the opportunities available to landowners through global carbon markets. Forest Matters is brought to you by NativState, the leading forest carbon development company for small private landowners.
Well, welcome back to NativState's Forest Matters podcast. We've got Kevin Wood, our wildlife biologist, back with us. If you listened to our last episode, you got to hear all about high conservation value and what that means for threatened and endangered species and landowners and forest certification. So we're going to go a little bit more deeply today, Kevin, into what is biodiversity, species diversity, ecosystems, and habitat protection. So jump right in there, Kevin. Tell us a little bit about what are the differences in those things. Biodiversity, species diversity, are those the same things?
Yeah.
More or less?
More or less.
Okay, tell us about that then. What do we mean when we're talking about biodiversity? I see that a lot. That's like a buzzword. What does that mean?
Yeah, so we're just talking about all living things and, how many different types of living things you have in an area.
Mm-hmm. So the more, the better, I'm guessing?
For sure.
Okay, so when we think about biodiversity in a forest setting, so think about some of the projects that you work with at NativState. What is the importance of biodiversity to, say, a healthy forest? Or is it the other way around? A healthy forest supports more biodiversity. How do those things work together?
Yeah, for sure. If you have a healthy forest, it's going to support more biodiversity. So in ecology, there's a lot of things we still don't understand. So with our landscapes being so different than they were, say, pre-European settlement, we've done a lot of things that's changed them over the years, and we still don't fully understand what kind of ramifications all of that has had. So, but in general, we have less biodiversity than we did before Europeans settled in the Americas. So we're looking at some, major species like elk and bison that are missing from the landscape in a lot of places, and down to insects and, other invertebrates that we don't notice or pay much attention to.
Right. So that makes me think about when I look at the lists of threatened and endangered species, so many of those are going to be like little mussels or clams or insects. Or my favorite one in Arkansas is the yellow-cheeked darter, right? So this, strange little yellow fish that only lives in a small area up in northwest Arkansas. But most people may not know or really care about these little things. You think about polar bears or, big things. So connect the dots for me here. Why is it important to protect these clams and mussels and fish?
Right. So a lot of those species are aquatic species. So, over the years, we've dammed a bunch of the rivers. That totally changes the ecology of those waterways. So, over the years, we're finding that, hey, what we've done with these dams is not good for that ecosystem. And, clams, mussels, mollusks, they're filter feeders. So they filter the water, improve the water quality, which downstream affects all sorts of things.
Sure.
Even onto the land. So that's kind of an indicator of where we're at in those ecosystems, is these things that filter the water are declining because of changes in their habitat, and the water quality is so poor that they're having a hard time.
So you said they're indicators. I've heard of indicator species and keystone species. Can you just give me a short explanation of what those are and how they fit into this picture of biodiversity?
Yeah, that's going to be a species that helps us realize the quality of that ecosystem.
So like your first warning system.
Exactly.
Okay.
Like the canary in the coal mine. It helps us say, hey, there may be something wrong here because this species is declining. Those species are generally more specialized in their habitat. So
I gotcha.
it's a good indication of change going on.
Okay. And those keystone species, what does that mean?
More or less the same thing.
Okay. All right. Okay. So let me see if I've got this right. So you have these smaller, maybe mollusks, things that are kind of at the bottom of the food chain, more or less, that are indicators. I would imagine that then influences things like the things that eat those or rely on the water quality, things like waterfowl. We're talking about water.
Right.
So the waterfowl or, those larger game animals. There's a connection, right, between
Sure.
these little things that people might overlook and these larger species that we all know about.
Yeah, it's all interconnected. So once you start having a decline in one species, it's going to have ramifications in other species, and some of those things we don't understand yet. A good example of that is out west in Yellowstone National Park. Wolves were removed from the landscape for many decades, which caused beaver to almost go extinct there in the national park, which doesn't make sense. You would think, wolves will eat a beaver. And well, what happens is the wolves were gone, which allowed the elk to come down further in the valley, eat up all the willow shoots, which is what the beaver relied on.
Wow.
And beaver were almost extirpated. So they reintroduced wolves that pushed the elk back up onto the mountainsides. The willow were able to come back, and the beaver came back. So
wow. So it's a mysterious balance that we don't completely understand.
exactly. So
So in Arkansas, though, a lot of these projects are in the Mississippi Flyway, and that brings in a lot of waterfowl, and that brings in people from across the country, right, who come in for these recreational opportunities into that area along the Mississippi and the Delta.
Sure. So if we're managing for an endangered species, that's only going to improve the habitat for other species as well. It's all related. So having a buffer strip along the river, hey, that's going to help the fish, going to help the clams, but that can also improve habitat for deer and waterfowl and turkeys and other things.
Right, got it. So you might not necessarily really care about the speckled pocketbook mussel, right? But you might care about the snow geese that come through or getting that 10-point buck in hunting season. And those things are interrelated, is what I'm hearing.
Yeah. So not every management activity is going to positively affect every animal, but a lot of times just maintaining the habitat the way that nature intended it is going to help those game species as well.
That makes sense. So then in the context of forest management and specifically sustainable forest certification and the expectations of FSC certification, how does this fit into that? What part of the picture is biodiversity, habitat management? How does that connect?
Yeah, so the FSC, Forest Stewardship Council, they have some criteria of how conservation is to be carried out on these properties. So there's a checklist there of things we've got to make sure happen. And I kind of mentioned this last time, that's not meant to be a list of restrictions for a landowner. That's hey, these are tools to help the landowner manage their property correctly. That's good for the environment, good for these species.
That makes sense. And I would imagine a lot of landowners are interested. You said you care about what you know about, and I would imagine, knowing about these species that are there and the importance of them and protecting that habitat would matter to a lot of the landowners.
It does.
Yeah. And I would also imagine then, as we talked about last time with FSC and forest certification, we didn't really get into it, but that adds value in the carbon market, right? When by participating in that and doing that checklist, like you said, that not only is good for the land and the species that live there, but it also makes those carbon credits have more value because of the co-benefits. Am I getting that right?
Right. These carbon buyers have a reputation to uphold. You know, they don't want to be associated with a project that harms the environment or harms an endangered species. You know, that's not a good image, and so they're looking for projects that are certified, and they know for sure, hey, this property is being managed correctly, and there's no risk there of us harming an endangered species that would harm our reputation. So
Gotcha.
And they're willing to pay a little extra for that.
Yeah, well, for sure. And it goes beyond not harming, right? So it's not just that you're not going to harm those species, but it sounds like you're really improving that habitat and making it a more attractive property, if you will.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's the goal is to have net gains for these species, not just do no harm.
Yeah, that's great. So what is the expectation for a landowner then? Are there other things that landowners need to do beyond good stewardship?
So most of what's required for these species are going to be in their management plan. So, just follow that management plan, and, our foresters and myself are here to help with that. And we can help directly, get you in touch with agencies that, state game agencies and things, or NRCS, Fish and Wildlife Service. We can help facilitate all those relationships and help you manage for those species.
That sounds great. That would be the struggle for me, just making all those connections and doing the paperwork. So it sounds like NativState and you in particular really help them make those connections and just make the process that much easier.
Right.
That's great. Well, it's really good to talk to you again about this, and I hope you'll come back and talk to us some more when we have more research on some of the other projects you're working on. I'll just leave that as a teaser, but
All right.
I hope you'll come back again, and I appreciate you sharing your expertise with us, Kevin.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Okay, take care.
Forest Matters is brought to you by NativState, the leading forest carbon development company for small private landowners. Learn more at nativestate.com.